if I was just hanging out with you like at a bar or something, what I would really pick your brain about and what I want to talk to you about today is, the sports team shit you do. I don't know any DJ. I mean, I know Jay and I with the Eagles thing. Other than that, like I really don't know any DJs that do the sports team things, and I have a lot of fucking questions. First being like the obvious, like what, how does one get that gig? Like how the fuck did you like end up like the in-game DJ for like the Pittsburgh Steelers and the college, which is also super lit?
So I think the crazy thing is I feel like it's a gig where it's almost impossible to apply for this gig. You just kind of fall into it. And actually, I started with the college first. So I was originally started DJing these tailgates for the college out on their they were tailgates and they were outside of the stadium. And I was doing those for the college, and the guy that ran the tailgates played, or he was the producer for the basketball games. So I originally did the University of Pittsburgh's basketball games first. That's what I did first. So he was like, hey, I really like your music. We don't have a DJ right now for our basketball games. It's literally so in any pro sports arena, they have a soundboard operator, just like a concert, because there are tons of different audio sources. Say in a football game, there's the ref mic and all the different video inputs they have, all have audio sources. And then there's the music you're playing. And then there's the, sideline mics, if they're doing a contest or a sideline reporter, there are those mics. So there are probably 30 some different audio inputs in Heinz Field, which is where the Steelers and Pitt play, coming into this soundboard. So, so there's a soundboard, operator, just like at a concert at any given sporting event. So for Pitt basketball, they just had this computer program. It was just kind of like these little squares, and the soundboard operator would hit a square and the producers just like, play this now, play that now. So they were kind of doing all the back end work themselves, downloading the music, deciding what to play. But the producer's also focusing on, everything else going on, the videos shown on the video board, the contests they're having. So he doesn't really have time to fully think about and focus on the music the way that just a dedicated DJ would. So he asked me to do some of the basketball games. So I did the first year, I just did like the big games, like we were playing UNC or Duke or something like that. And then the second year, I was going to do all the conference games, all the ACC games. So then after that, we went into we were also going into football season, and they had a DJ for football, but they didn't like their DJ for football. So they were like, we want to switch it up. Do you want to do football games? So I'm like, sure, I'll do football games. So that was a different producer, and I started working with this other guy. And so football was going well, and the Steelers and the University of Pittsburgh share the same stadium. So we share a stadium. So the producer for the Steelers games is always on site because the Steelers ultimately run Heinz Field. It's like a publicly owned stadium. It's paid for by the county, but the team itself is in charge of the operations of it. So the Steelers producer always has to be on site in case there's some problem with the equipment, because all of the internal equipment belongs to the Steelers. So basically the Steelers producer heard me playing and liked what I was doing and was like, hey, would you be interested in filling in? We were playing Christmas Day against the Ravens. Would you be interested in filling in for that game? And I'm like, sure, I'd be down to do that. And, I started, it was funny. I was going to do it, but I come home and I start telling my wife, hey, they asked me to DJ on actual Christmas Day. And as soon as I said that to her, she's like, you're doing this. She's like, I know it's Christmas. She's like, don't like him or her. She's like, you're DJing for the Steelers. And I'm like,
and that proves that behind every great DJ.
Yeah. So she was very supportive. So, so what they presented it as a fill-in type thing. What I found out after the fact was they kind of wanted me, they thought they might like me to be their new permanent DJ, but this was like their test run. And I guess the other DJ probably did one off Christmas because he has 2 kids. But they were basically, it was like, okay, if this goes well, we're going to ask Dave to stay on. If it doesn't go well, we just framed it as a fill-in gig, so he's not going to feel bad because he just thought he was filling in. So, no big deal. So It did go well, and so then we literally played the next Saturday or Sunday, which I think was New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, something like that. So they're like, "Hey, are you free to work this date?" So I worked the next week. I think it was actually New Year's Day because I had like a New Year's Eve gig, and then was up at the stadium at like 8 a.m. because we have to be there 5 hours before kickoff. And then we were in the playoffs the week after that. We played Miami, and I worked that game. So yeah, it just kind of, and that was 2016 when I started, and it just is carried on from there.
What happened to the other DJ? Does he hate you now? Does he like hate you because you stole his
you
gig?
know what? You know what? He kind of trained me. Like he kind of knew. I believe, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe that he kind of knew this was coming because he kind of trained me and was, I don't know. It just, I got the vibe, and then they kept him on in a different role for another year or two, like helping with some audio stuff on the sidelines. And so
he was graceful about it.
Him. So yeah.